Into live stream.
Yes, we're on.
Are we on? How do you know that? What's telling you that we're on?
It comes up with a little tab at the top saying this is now being streamed to one or more apps.
What is it? Into live
Yeah.
stream.
Yes, we're on.
Are we on? How do you know that?
There's,
What's telling you that we're on?
have we got the delay
A little
again?
tab at the top saying this is now being
Hey,
streamed.
there's an arm behind you.
What is
There's
it?
an arm coming to get you.
Okay, we're live, Maddie. Right. I wanted some the other day and she couldn't find it, and now she found it. Right at this absolute pivotal moment.
Absolute, yeah, pivotal
Uh,
moment in life.
Let me. I'm confused now. I've
We're doing it
deleted.
again. The Max and Paddy, Max and Paddy show.
We're okay once we get warmed up. I've said here we are live. Um,
Like the walking football version of the Sun World.
you
Not
start
that there's
saying
anything against walking football, by the way. I don't want to get slated for
no.
that.
So start talking then, James. I know you struggle with it,
No,
but
we're here. We are. Thank you to everybody once again. We are back. So thanks to everybody who's kind of tuning in or watching us live at the moment. Um, I know you had a big day the other day. Do you want to kind of let us know and give us a bit of a clue where you went and kind of give us a bit of a flavour for tonight's show?
yeah. Obviously it's called the art of engagement. Does anybody want to paint? I think this generic word engagement, and it's often a precursor to doing consultation and co-production, and it's the first signs, the first green shoots of parents are actually engaging with services,
Yeah.
other than when they actually use them. They engage in them to talk to them and look at how things can change. And so obviously there were the annual big event as far as the local area is concerned was on what day are we on? Yesterday. It was yesterday. Seems like a long
Yeah,
time.
Tuesday. Yeah, the Tuesday.
It was on Tuesday, and I wanted to give my opinions on that. I was in
Right,
attendance. I
what
went.
I'm going to kind of stop you there. I'm going to rein you back a bit. So, what happened yesterday? What was the big event for those who are kind of
Um,
if it's not a highlight of everyone's calendar, but what was the big event?
the big event was I don't even know what it's called. It used to be called Family Information Day. So I'm showing my site, but it was basically the local offer live event. I think that's what it's called now.
Yes, yes.
So what the idea was is that there was X amount of stalls, and it was going to be a full day of potential information for people to drop in, and get to know what was available in Barnsley if you have a sane child or a young person. Yeah.
Big event as well. It kind of the rent of the big rooms down in the Metrodome. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Good venue, a good venue in some ways. I will talk about that shortly. Um, I think it's horses for courses, and I sometimes, yeah, I've got mixed opinions on it. But when I walked into the room, into the sort of, it's where they do Pride of Barnsley. It's the whole what used to be called
Yeah,
the
yeah.
dry side of Metrodome. When I'm
Right.
showing his age, but that was the dry side at Metrodome, the wet side which up Poland, the whole dry
Yeah,
side, the
yeah,
three
yeah, yeah,
corners.
yeah.
And it's all done up and done out. And yeah, it was a big, expansive looking event, that I would say. Um, and I went, I think I got there about
What was
11.
your initial? What was your thoughts? What were you expecting to see when you kind of rocked up?
Well, last year I'd been, and I'd seen similar. There were a few logistical changes how it looked geographically in the building, which I think
Yeah.
all in all were for the better in terms of where last year this year were better than last year. That um, initial thoughts, I thought when you arrived, I thought there were a lot of people making a lot of effort towards the front of coming in through the front.
Yeah, yeah,
I managed to come in through the wrong entrance with me. I had two of my children with me actually, which were quite a unique experience for me. And he were quite, there was some nice food available and drinks. There were a bit of breakfast foods to put on, and later there were lunch, and then they were signing in and it weren't what I thought were good is that when I walked through reception area into it,
yeah,
it weren't super busy when we walked through. So from a sensory point of view, not for me, well, sometimes for me to be fair, from a sensory point of view, it weren't too intense,
yeah,
So there were some things where clearly people knew the stuff.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, and initially walking in, I think it looked a big event, and it was a big
mm,
event. But then it was it would a big canvas, and that's what I wanted to write earlier. I wanted to write about the fact that it just because you've got a big canvas in front of you doesn't mean that anybody's painting.
yeah.
And I think that's really I spent a good 2 hours there yesterday, and I didn't see a lot of
That's
painting.
that's important to know because it was advertised as come and have a look and take a look at kind you can get involved with co-production, how you can be part of the Send local offer. Um, what was your general thoughts and feelings on that? Did you was it kind of more of an information and um, leaflet dropping event, or was there kind of more to it? Was there more substance behind it?
I mean, obviously, we're going to get into a lot more detail about it, but I think it weren't good. It weren't good. Um, I thought it was in terms of walking round and in terms of me feeling like me trying to not think it from my point of view,
Yeah,
because I'm like a dusty old cowboy, it's not my first rodeo, but looking at it as a new parent walking through doors, I think there were a lot of information potentially up at each stall. There were clear lack of stalls that were missing, and nature of stalls, I would say, were all very similar. Um, but and maybe I didn't get the full experience, but I was there 2 hours, and I had two walk rounds, and then I went and stood with Sendias. I was chatting with Sendias because I've not seen that team for a long time, thankfully, because I've not had any tribunals or anything. Um, but that were mainly around lunchtime, you see. So I don't know, James. I want to break it down, I guess, in terms of stuff. Was there something before we get really into it? Was there something that you'd been working on today, or you'd been thinking
yeah,
about
there
today?
were. Yeah, so I mean, it's quite interesting that we're kind of discussing this tonight because I've been going. Well, you know me, I like to collate my information and my data, and we're putting together a few videos which we're going to be releasing. But I've been kind of focusing and looking on the headlines, just not nationally. Not you know, we all know the headlines that's going off in the national word as regards to Send.
Yeah,
I kind of what I wanted to do is kind of look at some of the headlines from our town, from the Chronicle, from the Star, from kind of various different and it kind of paints a bit of a bleak picture. To be honest, and we've got this up on our we put it up on our page, but I'll kind of read some of these headlines out. So from the Chronicle, we've got inconsistency in autism support leads to cross-party investigation. So inconsistency in autism support. So it's quite interesting that we've got this kind of all kind of fur coat event going on yesterday, but yet we've got inconsistency in autism support. Another one which we've got. So this is from the back end of last year. Um, so not too old. Council ordered to pay £1,500 after failing to provide alternative education for youngster with autism. That was in the Sheffield Star. Um, Again, it kind of doesn't like correlate to the event you went to. From the BBC, families want police action over send failings. We then drop back to the Chronicle. Parents unite and call for improved send provision. Obviously, our favourite article: school gets backing over send criticism. I think we'll do a piece on that at some point. But yeah, um, we've then hit onto the holiday fines. We've got the highest number of interim fines for parents in the area. Great news. Good news to be celebrated. Yeah, we'll put a stall
think
in.
I think we topped the country on certain aspects because the BBC wrote an article about it.
Yeah,
Um,
so we'll get a stall in about that one. Um, and I'm not going to use my term, my favourite one, but I think this is the one that has the biggest impact for me. And this is not just talking about send pupils or send youngsters. Outcomes for Barnsley youngsters insufficient,
yeah,
insufficient. But yeah, we can all stand around and spend however much money it was going to be to put the live event on, to portray smoke and mirrors. Again, another very, very concerning one, which hit the Chronicle. Above average number of Barnsley youngsters in trouble with the law.
yeah.
Yeah, so and I know
And
this is fact. I mean, part of the work we've done for quite a lot of time, we've been obviously working with youngsters in and out within the youth justice systems um, across the country. And unfortunately, like we said the other day on one of the chats, when we were there, um, actually on the shop floor 2018, 2020, 2022, you're looking at 78 to 85% at the time. Youngsters within the youth justice system had special educational needs or disabilities. Yeah. So, but yeah, we've got an event yesterday where we're trying to put this picture out there that we're doing a great job. Again, another bad one. Back end of last year, school suspensions at the highest rate ever. Yeah, that was literally 6, 7 months ago. And I would imagine now that's probably we probably peaked that as well. We've probably gone past that this year. Yeah,
yeah, or there's some magician work going on in readiness for Ofsted and CQC inspection, which might show a small reduction in it if they work hard enough, you know.
yeah, yeah. With a bit of creative accounting.
Well, there's a way of doing it using a certain section of law where you basically it's like pass your parcel with the most difficult kids, and the
Right.
academy's taking up to it, and you take one of ours and we'll take one of yours, and it's something like section 18 or something. I can't remember if I'm being honest. And it doesn't show as bad as it should do because I think if a kid moves between a school that's of the same academy, it's classed as not a suspension or an exclusion. There's always something, mate. I can bring it up. I've read about it, but yeah, I think you're right. I think there's when you start looking at it, the last 12 to 18 months. I mean, there was somebody challenged it in one at cabinet meetings or full council, but I just got this BBC article and it's the headline is fines double in a year in school absence capital. The number of fines issued to parents in Barnsley for unauthorised school absences by their children more than doubled last year, new figures reveal. A total of 5,845 penalty notices were issued in the borough for the school year 23-24, a 105% increase. And people say, "Oh, it's all holidays," and that. It's not. It's not. It's
No.
not just that. So these notices were typically, so biggest percentage, the result of ongoing unexplained absences rather than a one-term time holiday. So it's
Mm.
not that. This is this is the real deal. The borough had the
Well, we
highest.
see. Yeah, we're seeing the u- we st- we're seeing the starting to see the shift now in the use of the attendance policies to really kind of hammer parents. Some parents, yeah, unauthorized absences, or even in some cases, the discussions taking place that they are authorized absences, but yet they go down as unauthorized, and then the parents fighting the battle with them to try and get it changed around. Um, and we're seeing that, and I believe that will come, um, or should I say, it will become. used more and more and more and more over the next few months as we kind of move towards these new white papers or these new changes in well, they're not changes in legislation because let's be fair, they're not looking at changing the law. They're just adopting a new way of doing things, Barnsley. Um,
The government are basically putting a white paper out in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It would appear, and that's going to set out what is going to be expected of local areas. Now the law's not changing, but what I believe is going to happen is there's just going to be more mechanisms put in place to stop people going to tribunal.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
got to stop. As far as the government's concerned, the EHCPs and the tribunals have got to stop. They've got to stop. But rather than asking local authorities to uphold the law and fund local authorities to the correct amount that they need for what they're doing is they're slicing and dicing up the Sen community and saying this is severe, this is less severe, this is a. And don't get me wrong, there's some elements
Mm,
of that need to be addressed. The worrying part is that it's happening at a time when families are always there's always more families from deprived areas who are already struggling, really, really struggling under this supposed socialist government,
yeah, yeah.
get hit again. They're going to get hit again, and it's just going to lead to people becoming fragmented. But I think the key thing for me is with regard to the school absences and stuff, I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I've got no time for the term time holidays. And that's not going to make me popular. I've never been tried to be popular. I've tried to be honest. And from my point of view, if there's enough problems with it, then holiday companies need to be lobbied. Even the school terms need to be changed. Change the school
Yeah, yeah,
terms,
yeah.
change the system. But I'm sorry, but I think towards the back end of the year, maybe one week when kids are just shoved in front of TVs and films, I can sort of see parents' point of view.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
But
yeah.
being honest, growing up as we did and went all the way through school, and my kids, they don't have time off in term time unless they're poorly. That's it. And I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
agree. I'm sure there's anomalies. There's always anomalies. We send families as well, but the reality for me is that there's a legal requirement to go to school between the ages of 5 and 16, and a commitment post 16.
yeah. But that's, I mean, you've just hit it on there. So the non, kind of the anomalies, but um, it's individual approaches, and I think what we're going to see blanket policies coming in, which is going to, I think that's going to be the biggest driver. And we've just been listening to our friend Steve Alton on the cabinet meeting. I'm going to put something up about that. I'll put that meeting up or put that kind of out. And you hear the talk, you hear the words he used about building more resilient communities, and it's getting them back into work. It's not the easy thing to do. You know what I mean? It's got not the easiest route to go. Some of the rhetoric is very. You can kind of see what's going off, and it's kind of what what I kind of pick out of some of these messages is it's kind of we want to see what benefit you are to us as a council. We want to see you working. We want to see you bringing income in. What benefit are you to us? And that's the kind of that's the speech and that's the talk and that's the toughen up approach. Get more grit. Let's have a bit more resilience. Doesn't mean that. You know what I mean? That's the complete wrong word. You know what I mean? Resilience is being having the ability to be able to bounce back. You know what I mean? Not to toughen up, not to turn yourself to a point where you're kind of switching yourself off. It's not going to work. And that's the fearful thing what's going off. And that's it kind of then we're back to the event yesterday. You know what I mean? When we have this big shiny kind of circus event going off up at the Metrodome with all the lights blazing and you know what I mean? And look how good we are. Yeah. But yeah, it's like you ain't listening. You're still not listening. You're going down a route which is going to damage and it's going to damage people irreversibly. It's gonna split up families. It's gonna be horrendous. But nobody's listening. There's kind of that parent voice is lost. Like parent voices. I mean, what was happening yesterday? What was the parent voice like yesterday? What did you see?
I think it, the problem is that I can't sit here and be positive just because there's an expectation for me to not be negative,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
If I see something good, I've complimented it.
Oh
Just
no,
to
you do. Yeah, yeah,
that,
yeah,
we had 15 months or 13 months as the forum, 14 months as the forum, and when someone were working, I've got a sent box full of well done for that to staff at council. That this is good. This is good. People who are embracing co-production, but it's a bit like shouting. If you're always shouting, then your words no longer have meaning. If you're always saying, "Oh, that's amazing, that's amazing," amazing has no meaning. Good has no
yeah,
meaning. So, but with the absolute greatest respect, it was absolutely dire yesterday. And I can't sit here and pretend otherwise. And people say, "Oh, it's because you're not farm anymore." Lots of things will be said, and you know what? The last thing that I want right now is to be part of the official forum right now in this current state, right?
right.
Because at this moment in time, nothing can be achieved where parent voice is concerned in what it should be. But I'll give you a for instance, and this is culturally how how bad it is for me, how bad it is, right? When you the forum, what you are is you're not you're not a service, you're a
No,
moderator, okay?
yeah,
And you're a critical friend. And what you do is, so if I'm coming up to you and I'm moderating you, what I do in a meeting is I come up and I say, or if I see you, I say, "Hi James, how you doing? Not bad, thanks, Jonathan. Yep. Should we get started with what we need to discuss? Yeah, sure, yeah. Right? That's the type of relationship that I
yes,
would expect.
yes, 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 yes.
Well, we're seeing people throwing their arms around each other. We see people touching and high-fiving and doing stuff like that high-fiving, but like this matey culture between parents and professionals, as if you've got to get on, as if you've got to have a friendship. It's like no one can deal with small confrontation. The small confrontation where you're in a meeting and you say, "Well, actually, I don't agree with that."
Yeah,
Yeah. Not the I'm on Facebook and I'm tapping away a keyboard warrior. It's like there's two extremes. There's either being all right with each other and being friendly and aye, and all this, and then all these keyboard warriors. Well, for me, you need to be in the middle and you need to be sat there and you say, "I'm sorry, I don't agree with that, and I can bring the data to show that. But I
yeah,
respect your position. Can we move forward?" And it's serious, James. And I didn't see what I didn't see yesterday. So in a million years, if I lived for 3 lifetimes, I wouldn't have done what I saw happening yesterday. And that were yesterday, there were the so-called consortium members, which is threadbare, I hasten to add. They all had high visibility vests on for some reason. I don't know if
right.
they'd had to duck parking before they come, but they had high
Is that
vis
what
vests.
that's what we've been reduced to, car park attendants. That's what parent voice is in Barnsley.
I'm
Let's
being
park your
facetious.
car up, sir.
I'm being, but in the dry side at Metrodome, the consortium members had high-vis vests on, right? And what I saw were not just cheap labour, but free labour, and
Right.
the perception had been created. So these parents who think they're doing a good job, and I'm not having a go at them, I'm not, but they're not known, they're not well versed enough to understand what their importance is if they are a consortium, if they are a forum. Your
Yeah.
importance as a forum at an event like that, you're top door, you top draw.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
the ones because you are the strategic voice for every one of them parents that walks through there. And all parents saw yesterday was if they'd have known who what strategic voice was, they just thought, "Oh, it's a bunch them helpers,
Mm.
helpers." If I lived 3 lifetimes, I'd never have done that.
Yeah. You're
Help.
the conduit. You should be the conduit. You should be the funnel. You should be the
Absolutely.
door that opens yeah. You should be the door that opens to kind of put people through to the right areas, the right reception. You know what I mean? It's
The thing
not
is,
to walk around and be the litter pickers and let's move the cups out of the way and park the cars.
but you're not even there to guide people. What you are is you're an entity. So if you imagine like a snake situation, that's what
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
like today, right? At the bottom, for me, at the without doubt, the three sizes stall with a massive sign up saying the parent carer forum or the community consortium or whatever they think they're doing. And what it had become to us, and what I wanted to see as well yesterday, and so I saw it. To be fair, I saw it with Sendias. They had something behind them, and I saw it. I think for EHCP team, I'm not sure, but they had sort of makeshift booths behind them where they could go in with parents. Well, I tell you
right,
what,
okay,
there should have been at least three booths. There should have been stalls for parent carer voice, right? And there should have
yeah,
been booths where them parents who were desperate could have come and said, "That's Cam's over there." And they've done this to me, or they've done this to our so and so. That's so and so over there. They've done this to me. That's EHCP team. They won't answer me emails. Come in this booth here. Tell me what's going on.
yeah, yeah,
I'm going to
yeah,
go across and I'm going to fetch someone across to you,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
let's see if we can get a way forward. That's what parent voice is. And all I saw yesterday were people who were basically working for council, working for council. Now, that got my goat because I don't like to see parents in that situation. They might turn around and say, "You miss it. It's what it looks like. It's what it looks like."
Yeah. The problem you've got when you look at these conversations we've just been having, without that autonomy, without that independence, without that kind of holding them off at arm's length, you're never going to get proper advocacy. You're never going to get advocacy. Certainly now, if we've been looking at some of this discussion internally about what we think is going to be coming on these white papers and implementing and what's sensible, whatever. Obviously, we can have a chat about that another time. But you're not going to have somebody who's there reminding them services what the law says, not the policy, not the procedure, not the preferred working for Barnsley Council, but what the law says. You ain't going to get that. You're not going to get it. If you're too chummy
And
chummy,
yes,
you're
if
never going
you
to see it. You won't see it.
the most you'll get is from Sendias because we have an outstanding Sendias in our borough. Nobody else is going to be doing it. And what parent voice is, it's not just it is about that. It's about saying no, that's wrong.
Mm,
Can you imagine how like that's where we've been? And we go back to the last live and say you cannot say that it hasn't been strategic to not have a forum. You cannot
no,
deny the fact that there has been a concerted effort over the 10 years of their SEN code of practice to not have a strategic parent voice. James,
mm,
like I said, it was 13, 14 months we were given the grant. We had 5 months and we were ignored for other seven.
mm, yeah,
Yeah. So there's been 5 or 6 months worth of engagement. If that, that's been generous. It basically stopped when Mel John Ross went at door. So in 10 years, I would go so far to say that we had 4 months. We've had 4 months of actual genuine parent care reform strategic work. Don't tell me that that's not planned.
well, no, that's definitely planned.
You
It's
can,
that says that, yeah,
not when you
yeah,
go through, not when you look and you say, we let last year under this same department ascend, we led the country on ECNA refusals. There were
mm,
47% chance that your ECNA would be refused. 47, it's 50-50. For every two that went in, one were not back. And we still increased beyond 3,000 maintained EHCPs. Imagine where we would have been if them ECNAs hadn't have been refused.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So when
And
you
this is
start
it.
to look at it, we've gone into a safety valve that no one knows anything about. If you go to Rotherham or Sheffield, their strategic parent voice knows every single thing about the safety valve that's happening in their borough. We
Mm.
don't know anything. You can go onto Rotherham Council's website and you can see what they're doing. And we've never
It
been taught.
makes it. It really does make you wonder that when you see these parent groups. I mean, obviously, we'll have a chat about how what you see a parent group is, but these parent groups that are uh, allowing this consultation, allowing um, this advocacy, um, if they really know what they're letting themselves in for, because they're not there. They're not sat in places like I'm sat watching mediation, watching EHCPs being turned down, watching parents crying. You know what I mean? Watching children being basically thrown underneath the bus because it's going to cost a little bit of money. Do you know what I mean? That's what this consortium's clapping about. That's what that event's celebrating. Decisions made before people even walk into mediation. You know what I mean? Because it's going to cost money. They know for a fact they're not going to overturn it, no matter what evidence is put in front of them. That's the reality of the situation. What we're seeing, and that's true. That's true for every one of them cases we put together on that report. What we submitted on what we put online, the true. The reality is they are true cases. You know what I mean? But that's what these people are clapping and cheering from. That's what these people are high fiving for. Um, it, I'm baffled, to be
Well,
honest.
you know what, James? I think that there's a part. So I can't. I find it really difficult. I've been at the end of some absolutely horrific abuse that is where it needs to be, and some of it, a big percentage, is with South Yorkshire Police right now. But the reality for me is that p people didn't just wake up and start abusing me and start abusing other people and look at the phone call I received. I
Oh
was
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was the person who was being talked about in the phone call, and then 6 months later, after I'd well recovering from heart surgery and I was gone quiet, I'm being phoned by the person that was saying the things to me, and you're the person in the
Your
phone call.
abuser. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
your
and
abuser.
and
Yeah,
and you see that people don't just wake up and do that stuff, James. What
no,
that is that's nurtured, that's created, and wherever it's created, I'm not going to start making accusations on here. I'll prove what I need to prove. But the key thing here is that it's willful ignorance.
no.
It's almost like you're choosing to ignore. Deep down, you know, but there's always that side for me. There's always that side for me, which is I think it's Mean Girls, isn't it, the film where it's like you're almost you almost stick close to the bully,
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because you don't want to be in the line of the bully.
Mm.
Yeah, and there's elements of that. It's like, and then what they do is they gaslight people to think that other people are bullied. I've never bullied to. It's
Mm.
absolutely ridiculous. But the key thing here is I'm looking at these parents, and all I see are people that they're doing things that I can't believe they're doing, or they don't realize what they are doing. And
Yeah.
the jury's out on some. Some
I
I
mean,
don't. Some I don't know.
there's some
Um,
pivotal moments in time where that's happened, in it. I mean, for me, what I see with some of these groups, I don't see co-production. What I see is collaboration, and collaboration in some cases of the very worst kind. You know what I mean? We are talking about young people. We're talking about children, and what is going off at the minute is causing harm. It's undisputable that these children are being put through the mill. You read out the other night, the night a whistleblower. You know what I mean? What was the word used? Putting Barnsley, the children of Barnsley,
at risk.
at risk. Yeah,
This is what I
detriment.
don't understand, James. It's like people would rather demonize me and you in more recent years, more recent time, but they would rather demonize me than actually deal with the issues that are like. There's literally things that there are literally things happening that need to be stopped. I'll list it again. I've reported to CEO. I were reporting to executive leadership, and then I
Mm.
found out I were reporting to people who might have had some. level of understanding.
Involvement. Yeah.
I reported to all MPs, including the old Conservative MP before she was, ousted, and the now MP who are in the area. I involved that person in. I, I've gone to ombudsman. I've gone to
Yeah.
everywhere. CQC. I contacted 3 weeks ago. I've heard no back since. This is a professional, a senior professional working in CAMS. Let's be straight here, working in CAMS. So
Yeah.
that you look at the statistics, that's one of the headlines you missed. Where self-harm is higher in Barnsley than it is anywhere in Yorkshire and one of the highest in country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Self-harm. Our
Yeah.
children are literally cutting themselves and hurting themselves because they're not being listened to. And they're not being listened to, and the parents are not being listened to. And we are pushing the standards. And everything is just deflected to be, well, it's a national issue. It's not a national issue.
Mm.
Not that when you're leading on so many tables, that is not a national issue. That's a local issue. They are local issues. And it's no coincidence that for the last 8 to 10 years, we've had the biggest milking of financial vigor in this
Yeah.
area
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
1 square mile town centre.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
absolutely drained us to the tune of £800 million worth of debt, 900 million,
Yeah.
1.1 billion, and we're bankrupt, I believe. We're seeing it now, James. We're seeing it. We're seeing the neglect, and what everybody's seeing now is just seeing quick highlights, quick headlines. 500 grand for send. Oh, I wonder why that came about. Why did that come about? Why didn't it come about when those support workers that are going to support the improvement officers. All that stuff were identified 4 years ago. Yeah. So they're claiming that the SEN data's got better, but yet the council and the cabinet are having to fund that department even more.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That don't marry up with data, does it? If they're going to present to Ofsted that their data's getting better with SEN support levels, then why have we got to a point where that is? And they'll turn around and say, well, we know EHCPs are going to. It is literally, there is no check and challenge
Yeah.
from a parental point of view. And with the absolute greatest respect, and I use this example time and time again, right? They talk about young person voice in bars. It's strong, it's this, it's that, the other. The vast majority of young person voice comes out of Ozone, right? Which is a Barnsley Council run short breaks youth club. Okay. Or it comes out of places like Ad Astra, a tiny little group, or a little social enterprise, or CIC, up Athersley, that gets money hand over fist, pocket money hand over fist. You can view it. I could put it up now to deliver certain projects. I'm not demeaning the projects. I'm not
Yeah. Yeah.
demeaning projects, but what I'm saying is that's not voice.
No.
And the example that I've always tried to give with voice to people is it's a bit like this. Say you have a mobile phone company, right? And that mobile phone company treats you like dog muck. Don't
Yeah.
deal with your SIM card, whatever. And you phone up and you have an absolute umdinger of an argument with someone from EE. God, I've got EE or a phone company, right? And then they say, "Well, would you like to cancel your contract?" Yeah, I'm cancelling. I'll cancel my contract. Da, 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 da. And then you're about to hang up, and that same company, that same person says, could we just talk to your son or daughter about setting up a mobile phone contract? That is the
Yeah. Yeah.
equivalent for us parents saying to our local authority, you won't listen to us, you won't listen to us, you won't listen to us. And then allegedly us allowing our young people to have a voice.
Mm.
We haven't got it. Why would you do it?
No.
Why would any
No.
self-respecting parent who can't have a voice themselves actually be part of letting their child be part of a young person voice. And what it
No.
shows is it's cherry picking. It's a small amount of people are being
Yes.
chosen to deliver on behalf of thousands of people. That's at young person level. And now we're seeing the same formula being produced at parent voice level. A small amount of people with echo chambers, and they've got a hate figure, which is Big Bad Jonathan or Big Bad James. Focus on that, and we'll do this. And vast majority of parents don't even know what's going on because they're just that run down anyway.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But yeah, what I've seen over the last 5 or 6 years, 7 years, is it's called the Local Alpha Live event, and it used to be called Family Information Day, right? And when you walked into that building, it was for families and professionals were invited. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
what that felt like yesterday was it was for professionals, and you can come along if you want. And I'll be honest with
Right.
you, I was sat there for 2.5 hours, and I've got friends up and down. People don't know who I know and who I'm friendly with and who I get on with. They don't know that. And there's a lot of people working a lot at services. I've worked in 10 services. I know people. People don't know who I know. And they said that footfall were absolutely shocking. The footfall of parents were shocking. And in the 2 hours that I was there with my two children, it was really, really quiet. And all I saw were lanyards talking to lanyards. And he just had a feeling of someone were going around with a camera filming it, put some music on in background, get some pictures, some disabled kids, probably my own kid, and
Nice
you
bit of
present it.
propaganda.
Propaganda, yeah.
It's the very best to go with the
Whereas
collaboration.
how it used to be run, it was run by families, by Parent Care Forum, by Sendias, or by Sarah Wyke, who was seconded at that point as well. It were held at Barnsley Football Club, and it were for families. And there were events on. There were things for families to do. There were wheelchair accessible bikes or disability accessible bikes, and they went
Yeah,
out
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they played games. You could, like yesterday, we saw no examples. Vision Focus for Vision were there. I cannot believe, I cannot believe that this service that is what this parent group service. I can't believe they weren't doing examples of games that can be done that are done for people who are partially sighted and
Get the
blind.
blindfolds out and get the siblings play alongside.
I can't
Yeah,
believe that there weren't some
yeah.
small examples for people to get involved with hearing impaired sports or
Mm.
activities.
And
Or
you know what's funny? Do you know what's funny about that? Is we've got Maria Tidball, who's just been recently quoted in the Chronicle, on about the new government chucking more money at the. And this is something close to my heart. When we ran the For All program, and we kind of hit the pinnacle of the work. And we were down at Doncaster Dome when we put an event on alongside Doncaster Council. We had all sorts of people come down, but we had them playing the sports. They were doing the games. They were taking part. We had the talks going on, but they were doing the games and taking part. If you ain't doing that, that's not an event. It's not an event for anything else other than promotion. That yesterday was a promotional event. If you've got a desk laid out with just loads of leaflets on, nothing going off where it's not, there's no engagement, that's promotion.
I'll tell you a really good example of that, and people don't pick up on this. And I'm going to a place where I know people are going to say something, but I just don't know. Right. So yesterday there were a dance group on, right, and it were adults with disabilities.
Right.
So it
Okay.
were an organised group, and they'd practiced. And what they were doing is they were showcasing what they'd done, which is, at a push, it's like, yeah, great, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not being negative about that. I did question elements of it though, in the sense of why our local specialist school weren't there doing that. So Greenacre, why
Right.
Greenacre? And I'll get onto schools in a minute, but particularly Greenacre.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I appreciate that we want to celebrate disability up and down. But generally speaking, that day has always been about the young people, not
Yeah,
adults. Okay, so I found that strange, and I think a lot of people who know what that day is about and what it's designed for would have found that a little bit strange. But also, it were organised and it were performance, so it weren't about taking part.
yeah,
It was something that very much were about look at this. It didn't sit comfortably with me, if I'm being honest, because it felt like these brilliant young people, these brilliant adults who could dance, and these brilliant people over the age of, and they weren't all adults, but these brilliant disabled individuals who were so full of joy, it felt like they'd been rolled out a little bit, and I didn't like it, and I've every right as a dad to not like that. Now, the deepest irony of all of this, and I'll post it later because I went with my daughter who's sitting in GCSEs, so she's off official school, And I took Billy as well. So I had my 16-year-old and my 14-year-old, Billy. And he's off because it's Robert Ogden and they have a different term time. So we
mm,
rocked up and we're walking around. And I've never been to any events with my kids, never. Just because it's usually in day, which I've always said is shocking.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
it's just shocking. It's designed for
It's not.
workers.
It's not playing for the audience. Yeah,
And just while I remember, the information day used to run till like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Just now it runs till 5:30. And one of my mates, the lad who I know for a number of years, he said it were all packed up for 4:15. You know what I mean? So if
right,
anybody
right,
were rushing to get there after work, they weren't going to see a lot. So, but
right.
that's by the by. And it were advertised till whatever time. So you get there, and this is going off. But what my son did, he's like, he was looking at it. Like, and then he said something to Maddie, which is my daughter, and then he said to me, he went, "Billy dance." Right? And it's not like Billy. So it was a beautiful moment. He
Yeah,
does
yeah,
dance.
yeah,
And he walked full length at Metrodome and just went and got involved in this dance troupe and danced his heart away. And it was beautiful. I was moan, it was lovely. And I took a little video. But what struck me about it in retrospect is it were almost a shock that Billy did that. Whereas
yeah, yeah.
what you would want is you would want it to be join in anytime you want, guys, or it's something
Absolutely.
set
Yeah, yeah,
up for people who are arriving. You want them
yeah,
people performing. I get that. I understand that. It's a focal point. But it just didn't have that feeling. And I didn't see a lot of young people there. I didn't see a lot of children. James, we used to sit in them information days, and I've been to loads of them. I've been part of stalls. I've been there at Forum. There used to be more prams and buggies coming in. Yeah, we had mums
mm,
coming desperate with the younger children while the kid were at school to find out what were wrong with their kid or something, or not wrong, but you know what I mean, terminology. I just didn't see it, man. I just didn't see it. And while all I could feel was I just felt like it were owned by the local authority and it were owned by the services. That's what it felt like. It didn't feel co-produced. It didn't feel like the ownership belonged to families. It felt like we're here, it's ours, come in. And I think it's just because they don't take feedback. There's no parent voice. Everybody's too busy patting each other on back. And the parents that they've got involved, no disrespect to them, but they're not questioning. The first question I would do is, "What? Ivy's vest? What are you on about? Get us some of his own t-shirts printed off." You know?
yeah. It's. I think it's probably reflective of what we're seeing, what we're seeing across the board. I mean, obviously, as you're probably aware, the EHA process have changed now to TEH. Um, and I've been sat in some of these meetings, and it's kind of like when you get through the questions, and it's you have the school then turning around to the parents and go, "All right, what have you done about this so far?" And it's like, hang on a minute, they've come to you asking for help.
Yeah.
You know, they've come to you asking for help, but yet you're asking what they've done about this so far, and then you're trying to push it all back onto the parents, but you're not prepared to listen to the parents in the first place.
Yeah.
It's it's. I think Yeah, without that parental voice system and without parents being involved, um, at a level where we can kind of influence. So we're up to your strategic level of co-production. I just think it's going to get worse. It feels like we're becoming more. It feels like we're being silenced.
Well, the thing that worries me the most, James, just from a strategic point of view, is the whole basis of what is going to come, what's coming through the door from the national government is going to be absolutely heavily reliant upon families, parents, and schools being able to work together.
That ain't gonna happen.
And what terrifies me is, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of parents that have got to change, they've got to change their attitudes.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not,
yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and say that
Yeah, there's
it's
percentage. Yeah, yeah,
there
yeah,
is, there is. There's people got to
yeah,
recognize there's a huge there's rights and there's also responsibilities. And I'm a
yeah,
firm believer in that. And as a parent, no matter what hand you dealt, you've got responsibilities.
yeah,
You've got them and you must adhere to them. But these parents also have very, very clear set of rights that are given to them through Children and Families Act, through Equality Act, and through SEN Code of Practice. They have
yeah.
rights. And because of those rights, the schools have a responsibility to them. And
Mm.
that responsibility is just ignored. And if this
And
government,
I think I think what we're definitely seeing now, and I know 100% is happening, and this could be echoed. Um, but it's we're what we're seeing now is as we kind of gauge up and get ready for this. It looks like we're really adopting. It looks like we're really adopting in Barnsley without a shadow of a doubt. They're trying to bring in processes and procedures now and the ways of working, which is preempting what's going off. And you are right, for this to work and to move forward, parents, carers, families are going to have to work with schools. And then we
yeah,
go back to this bend and we go back to this co-production what we talked about last time. And then we go into this car crash because what we're actually physically seeing now is schools dictating to parents. They're kind of leading on these. So education's been put into this onto this pedestal where they're leading. So even on EHCPs now, education seems to lead. And they're now dictating. So we'll kind of first thing what we see is right. We'll remove course subjects. Yeah, we'll partial timetable. We'll 1 day a week. You can have a an early pass. You can have a toilet pass. You can have a this pass. You can do this pass. They're dictating every single thing which has gone through, and I don't know what they must have some kind of. It definitely doesn't. What it's not a central inclusion toolkit that the council's put out. You know what I mean?
mm,
It's not this Barnsley Autism Friendly Schools initiative. They must have this little like a recipe book what's been passed down from old Senko to old Senko and like the school family secrets. You know what I mean? Well, have you done this one? As he walked past the school, you know what I mean? As he sat on a park bench outside the school, just to, you know what I mean? And I'm like, let's get him back in again. Attendance, attendance, attendance. Schools are dictating to families what are going on. They're not listening to them. So they're going, all right, okay. So like they go into crisis when this happens and this. Oh, well, good news. We'll screw that up and we'll put it in the bin. And what we'll do is we'll give you a pass. You know what I mean? Where he can walk down a corridor 5 minutes earlier, just as he's coming out of the toilet, for argument's sake, then he's bombarded by about 20,000 students running past him. You know what I mean? So they're not listening, and that's what the problem's going to be. So if when we've got events like this going off, and you really need the advocate to turn around to the school and go, okay, stop dictating. Let's start working together. Let's start working on true co-production. You know what I mean? When you've not got that advocacy, and even worse, when you've got parent groups going, oh, we've had a walk around such and such school today. It's been wonderful. And we've been invited back in again in 6 months down the road. Yeah. Or by, do you want to be, do you need advocacy? Do you need support? You know what I mean? Although we're on the school side, do you want support? It's not going to happen. You know what I mean? We're going to, it's smoke and it feels like someone's blowing smoke up someone's ass, to be honest. It's part of my French, but, you know, and then
yeah.
my smoke and mirrors, you know what I mean? It's like, how is there going to be a way forward unless these schools realise that they're not psychologists, they're not medical professionals, they're not whatever they might be. Yeah, the teachers. Yeah, this little scrapbook, what they've got. If it ain't working, yeah, you need to look at something else. You know what I mean? Let's stop
Yeah,
patting yourself on the back and go, I tell you what we've done. We've got him down to 1 hour a week now, where he's coming into the bridge. Yeah. And what we're going to do is he could do self-guided learning.
yeah.
You know what I mean? These kids have got a legal right to a meaningful full-time education. So if that's send support, stripping all that education away from him and giving him 1 hour a week, you know what I mean? How is that? You know, well, we've done everything now. You know what I mean? We've tried every recipe in the book. It didn't
I mean,
work.
there is an element there's a huge part of me that I do feel for a lot of school staff. And the
Do
reason
I do?
the
Right. I'm gonna. I'll just. I do absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. And what we've got is we've got positions where teachers, maybe not with a lot of experience, not with a lot of lived experience, maybe never even come across a disabled child before they've got into the school environment, have been picked up and they've been dropped into that role of Senko. Yeah, they have been kind of, there you go. All right, so you've run past the disabled school once. You know what I mean? We see it with PE teachers all the time. Oh, you go running. You go running. Oh, here you go, PE department. You know what I mean? You see it, and I feel for these Senkos because they're kind of being told and directed down. They're being micromanaged from the senior leaders, not realizing what their role really truly is. You know what I mean? And not the kind of, oh, there's the recipe book, and oh my God, I've run out of recipes now. What do I do next? Are you with me? Oh well, that's it. Simple. We'll just go to that last page. Can't meet needs. Do you know what I mean? I feel absolutely feel for them. So if we're going to get to a point where we're not having these car crashes, and schools stop dictating and start working together, that comes with knowledge, that comes with training, that comes with experience, that comes with understanding and empathy. That all right, I've got this parent who's ringing up every single week and effing and jeffing and doing what. But let's look at what's happened all these years prior to getting to that point, and let's understand what's been going off, and let's kind of put their as arms around them a little bit. You know what I mean? Build a little
yeah.
bit of scaffolding, build a trusting relationship. I just can't see how it's working. When you kind of get in a school which is run as a business, I don't, you know what I mean? When the outcome of the business really is a factory to churn, I call them chicken farms. You know what I mean? It's just churning kids out of the door,
I
out the
think I
door.
think so. I read a report recently in Barnsley, and it said that about I think it was about 13%, 13 to 14% of our children are considered SEND. Okay,
Okay, right.
so so if you
Interesting, yeah.
so if you look at that, it's roughly one in six. So let's go rough because that data is probably rough, and let's say that it's 15%. Okay, and I mean that. Let's just for one moment, let's just acknowledge that the Lamb report many years ago suggested that as time moves on and as education changes and as children become more tied up in technology and we become better at identifying, it will be around one in six children have got special educational needs. So
Yeah,
they knew it were coming. It weren't. It's not. It's
yeah, yeah.
being painted as a disaster, but fundamentally, I can look back at the 20 odd people in my class at school, at primary school, and identify X amount of people who now would be diagnosed SEND, some high functioning, for want of a better phrase, really for want of a better phrase, educationally, and some really low functioning. But nonetheless, we were all in the same class together. That's through primary and secondary. But when I look at it now and I say, right, so we said that one in six. Say you've got a class of 30, it's 4.5 kids. Let's call it 5 kids for every 31, 32. So when a mainstream teacher I mean, I think they have roughly about one. It's something like that. Someone did the data, and it was something like they end up having about 12 hours worth of delivery on a PGCE on SEN. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
when you start breaking it down and you say, right, English teacher coming in, or English teacher 2 or 3 years, moves area, moves to an area like Barnsley, or goes to uni, comes up from another place, marries a lass from Sheffield, or marries a lad from Sheffield, and they end up settling around here. And then you go into this level of social deprivation, and
Yeah.
you go into a classroom as an English teacher, and five of the 30 kids or so have got SEND, they've got specific needs. And let's be straight here, if you're lucky, one of them might have an EHCP. Okay?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got one now with defined needs who might have some funding. Arguable that that
Yeah.
funding won't be meeting that child's needs because it'll be being spread across the across the school to deliver SEND generally. So you won't
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
all
Yeah. Yeah.
assigned to your specific EHCP. And then I look at it and I think to myself, they must look at them classes and think in that classroom situation that some of these kids are acting feral. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's I
Yeah.
don't mean that they are feral, but if you put someone in a situation of 30 people of the exact same age as you at that age, with one teacher who might only have 3 to 4 years experience on the background, with the rigidity of these academies of
Yeah. Yeah.
how they
Yeah.
have C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, it is an absolute recipe for disaster. And
Yeah.
then I've had people phone me up when my daughter, who's now 16, and she's doing ever so well, but she was being a prat. And I've had teachers phone me up and I can hear them. And I think to myself, they're probably only about 25, 26, right? And they're phoning me up and they're having to tell me that my daughter's been a prat.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the first
Yeah.
thing I say is, year of detention. That's
Yeah.
honestly, give her detention. If she's not showing you respect, now there's loads of things. She'll come home and I'll say what happened, and there's more dynamics to it. But at the heart of it, I have to try and support that teacher. Now, if it becomes a repeated event, I'll deal with it. But I look at all them dynamics and I find it really, really difficult to be frustrated or angry at classroom teachers who are just trying to develop a skill. Now, when it goes to senior management, you are dictating the culture of your school and you are paid a
Yeah.
lot of money.
I do get where you're coming from, but unless things have dramatically changed from my day when we're talking quality first teaching, you've got an obligation. You have an obligation. I can remember when I was when I was delivering in college post 16 and you used to get your IQA visit for argument's sake. And you had that one kid who was kicking off in your class and they were watching how you handled that kind of incident. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're watching what they were watching what you were doing. And a lot of the places where I work with them, you kind of had city and girls and all sorts coming in. They were kind of looking for you to time to see how you reacted. Yeah. Usually, when a kid's kicking off, there's a root cause. I always liken it to being like a symptom, like a, you know what I mean, coughing and spluttering when you've got a cold. Yeah. There's a root cause. Now, as a teacher, that could be something as simple as that kid is bored. You know what I mean? That kid could be bored. The kid could have SEN. It could be something essential which is going off. And they used to come in and watch how you handled that. Yeah. And then they'd ask you, where's your differentiation? Yeah. How have you adapted for all learning style? I can remember the questioning and it feels like we've gone past that now. Do you know what I mean? It seems like that element of being able to kind of differentiate when you're delivering a session, yeah, and actually put in a reasonable adjuster and get your student profile, yeah, which they have, yeah, and how am I going to accommodate this session for little Johnny? Yeah, are you with me? How am I going to do that? I've got my topic there. We've gone past that now. It's more of behavior management. Behavior management, it's more, and behavior management's an interesting term to me. Behavior management could be how do you turn that negative behavior then into a positive behavior? You engage that student back into learning within that session. Not how quickly can you kick them out the door.
Oh no, no, no. No.
Yeah.
And
And that's what it feels like to me at the moment. I get where you're coming from, and I get the fact that they've got, but that's teaching. That is one of the primal elements of quality first teaching. It's teaching.
it
All
is.
right, don't get me wrong, don't, you're not going to get through to absolutely everyone, and you're gonna have to. You know what I mean? You're gonna get to a point where the students there where you're gonna have to go. So I can't. You know what I mean? I've done everything I possibly can. I've used every tool in my toolbox, but going from that straight to that, do you know what I mean?
Oh
And
no,
usually in
I don't doubt
secondary
that.
school at that age, I was delivering GCSE, PE, whatever. If that kid was acting up, it's probably because they were bored, or they didn't understand,
Hmm.
or they weren't retaining the information. That's not the
But
kid's fault.
what I can say though unequivocally is
Yeah,
that there's someone and there's a s- an amount of people that know me as a post 16 teacher in multiple colleges. I've worked with
yeah,
there's an
yeah,
amount
yeah,
of people, right?
yeah,
Uh, it's been 14 years since I did any classroom teaching, and what I can say unequivocally, and I work with difficult children, children who had really, but the numbers in the classroom were about 15. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah, yeah,
and it were me and maybe a TA, but they had special needs, and but they were behavioral more often than not. As in, there were aggression and there were, that sort of thing.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
And I couldn't do it now. I could not do it now, not in a million years. I've got relatives, both my brothers work in secondary schools. I talk to them, I listen to them, I listen to my daughter, I listen to her, and I completely agree with what you're saying, James, and in terms of where it was. But I do think when you've got, say, an average 5 or 6 kids out of 30 who are just they're kind of getting to a point beyond teaching, the cuts that have occurred to the TAs and all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
things that
yeah, yeah.
occur, I don't mind saying, as someone who probably would have a good chance of being able to do it, I won't do it. And I think what
No,
I'm
I'm
trying
not listening. I'm not saying yeah. So to be clear, but then we're back to whose fault is that? That ain't the parents' fault. That ain't the child's fault.
I do think on a non-send basis, I think parental responsibility is declining. I can't sit here and
Right,
say
right.
that. I do think that people are expecting children to go to school. Parents are expecting children to go, and that's to do with adverse pressures in economy, people having to work, two parents working in, affording housing, all them things. But I do think that we are, and then not monitoring children and the usage and the bedtimes and things. A lot of traditional values have gone away, and then they're going to school and they haven't got the readiness, and so. But what I'm trying to say here is not really particularly that much about specifics then, but I don't think it's about them 5 out of 30. I think it's the other 10 that are now really struggling in that classroom situation.
Right.
And I think also from my point of view and from my perspective, I think as schools are becoming obsolete. I really do. I think
Right.
that
Okay.
I don't think the formula works. It don't
No,
it
I
don't
agree with that.
seem to
Totally
work.
agree with that.
And like I think
Totally
that
agree.
teachers, your standard classroom teacher is being set up to fail. And that's being shown in the people are walking away from it.
Yeah, yeah,
They're just
yeah,
walking away from the
absolutely.
profession. And what you've got to do is you've got to drill down and find out, like you said, if you were looking at the behavior of a child, you've got to drill down to that behavior. What we've got to drill down to find out why people are walking away from the teaching profession. And I'm
Yeah.
sure people could come on and tell us, and I'm sure I could have a good guess. But I would say up there at number right up at the top
But
would
the
be
problem you've got is they're not schools anymore. We've gone
no.
past the days when you had a school on your village, for argument's sake, with your village school teacher. You know what I mean? Everybody knew him, respected, held up there. This isn't what we're seeing now. They're not schools. When they moved to that, they made that move to shut these schools down and start to have these massive buildings. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? With like a conveyor belt going up from year 7 up to year 8. To, you know what I mean? And if any like quality control, if something falls off, then chuck it in. You know what I mean? That's stopped. They've stopped becoming. They're not schools. That's not education. What's going off now is not education. And maybe that's the conflict. Maybe that's what's going off with teachers. Maybe they're kind of thinking, well, hang on a minute. When I did my teacher training, I was told this, and now I've come to here, and it's like an open prison. You know
But
what
if
I
you
mean? It's
think
like,
about it, Jim, if you think about the three tiers of a child, most children's education, and you look at generally speaking, where children with special educational needs have a good experience and then the worst experience and then a good. It's linear. So they started primary school, and that's not saying everybody. These are not massive.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Primary
yeah.
school is very much about what you've just said, community based. It's smaller, it's more personable, it's so and so. And you see it, and then what you see is that transition up to secondary school, and particularly our schools are not good. Our secondary schools, I'm not talking about grades, I'm talking about they're just not nice environments for me,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. 100%.
And
I
and
agree with that.
then when kids go, then when eventually when kids leave and they go to sixth form or college, they go back to more like a primary school community because you go to a department and you study a specific subject. There's only A-level students that move around, and that's not overwhelming. And you end up doing A-levels with someone else that you know. But if you think about it, like college, then is like all multiple departments. You go to sports and it's everybody looks out for each other. Bricklaying, everybody's there. A levels,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
less students and staff
yeah,
are more friendly, and you know everybody's name. And
yeah.
what I have a tendency to see is I see as kids have got a better chance when they're at primary school because
Yeah.
they develop a relationship with a member of staff or there's someone looking out for them and it's small. And then at college, they pick back up again, having had terrible time at secondary school because
Oh,
again,
yeah,
it's
yeah. I
more
agree with that.
home.
Totally. I was
So
just
if
about
you
to say
look
that.
at
Yeah,
that three-stage process, it's this middle section which, and you look at the data, the self-harm data, all them things, it's all in this midsection. And someone once asked me, they said, "What about what your Maddie gets from the results?" I says, "There's only one desire I have for my daughter, my at that time 11-year-old daughter going to a second school." I said, "Is that she leaves at year 11 with good mental health."
yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah,
That
yeah,
was my
absolutely.
only
Yeah.
aim, only aim.
I
And
think
I
the
think
telling. I think yeah, picking up on that, the telling thing is we see children who can literally drop out of school at year seven, year eight, year nine. Well, year it usually starts happen. They start having the problems at year seven, year eight, and then by year nine, year 10, that's it. They're either home educated, off rolled, or whatever the problem might be. They can miss a full year, stroke 18 months of schooling, secondary school, and then walk straight into college and pick up qualifications where it's work based. I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot what needs to be looked at on the curriculum. There's a lot what needs to be looked at in mechanics at schools. And I'm not saying that all teachers are, you know what I mean? It's very, I've said it time and time again. I don't believe teachers go into the education profession um, not wanting to educate children. I also, one of the things that kind of sticks in my mind, which has always stuck in my mind, is somebody told me once on training is if you look at kind of like your typical teacher, certainly in secondary school, they've never left the education system. They've gone straight from school, straight into university, straight back into school. You know what I mean? So they're kind of they have a one track way of work. So I don't know. I've not got all the answers. I know it is difficult and tough. The only thing what I kind of fear is when we use these blanket approaches, when we use a blanket approach to discipline, when we have a blanket approach to teaching, when we have a blanket approach to teaching maths or whatever it might be, and you're not knowing what's kind of going off on the shop floor.
And this has to be the way that the procedures, the white paper that's coming out, it has to be accountability at mainstream schools.
Right.
It has to be. If it's
Yeah.
not, then we might as well say goodbye to SEND kids, if even thinking about getting an education. Because if they're not going to put some sort of tiered system into SEN support, or they're not going to put something that makes it, there's a level of accountability, a question. Why is this school removing their SEND kids? Why is there exclusions? But I think you're absolutely right with the law of diffusion and so, which is Barnsley are early adopters. I think they've been told they have to be early adopters. That's what I believe. I believe the DfE have come in and said, if we're going to save you here, then you're going to do as we said. They've run the PINS project, which is a participation in schools. I can't remember the name, but basically it's about looking at parents going into run workshops in schools. That's been going on. Nobody knows who's done it, but they've done that in Barnsley, right? But they haven't got the funding for it, but they've done it. So there were some areas that were selected for it. Let me put it up. Pins in Send, right? And I emailed Ed Send, Partnerships for Inclusion of Neurodiversity in Schools. Have you heard of it? It's been
No,
run in
never heard of it.
Barnsley. There's been parents delivering it.
Have they?
Ah, yeah. I don't know who's delivered it, but
Hmm.
what I do know is they tried getting
I tell you what. I
Bernard.
tell you what. I'll tell you what I do know. Tell you what I do know, and I'll tell you what I kind of hold up there as a major, major problem is communication. Is absolutely communication.
But it's selective communication, James. It's on
It's
purpose.
poor. It's very, very, very poor. I mean, going back to so when we're going about, yeah, you've got your 30 children, the behaviours kind of you're looking at, and it's not joined up. You know what I mean? These children might have real severe need, which is social care, not education. But
Oh
all
yeah.
the onus is put on education. You know what I mean? All the pressure's put on education to deal with, where they get no support from social care, no support from. So it's not joined up. It's definitely not joined up in Barnsley.
So on Wednesday, sorry, on I sent an email on 23rd of April to I'm not going to name the person because I know what'll happen. But I sent an email to someone who would know what's happening with Parent Voice in the local
Yeah,
authority. Okay, as a higher level person.
yeah.
And I wanted to complain about the consortium. I couldn't work out to complain. The email I got back was, thanks for your email. A week later, thanks for your email. The terms of reference for the consortium are on the local offer and include how to make a complaint, which,
I've looked at that. Yeah, yeah, they're
yeah,
in.
which would be directed to the relevant organisation. The consortium are currently revising the terms of reference, but until the changes are agreed, the current one stands. So apparently they're creating new terms of reference. So just do what they want, just create new terms of reference. The consortium, I'd asked about what pieces of work they're doing. The consortium have been supporting the development of the local offer,
Yeah, that's what I was told in a freedom of information request. Yeah.
yeah, the PINS project, which is what I've just talked about, uh, PFA, and the all age autism strategy.
All right. Interesting. On the freedom of information request I made, which was a bit back, it basically said that they would not be involved in anything along them lines.
Well, I'll tell
They
you
were
something.
just there. They were just there to support the local offer.
I'll tell you one of the biggest questions here is Bernardo's. So
Right.
Bernardo's one, and I said the other day, the volunteers and the peer support workers, the parents who want, they do a fabulous job. But the organisation itself, I know, I'll tell you now, I know that that organisation made a complaint about me. They made a
Right.
complaint about me as an organisation made a confidential complaint about me to the local authority. It's just I can't even get my head around it. How this is work. It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, but it's coming out. It's on its way, and they'll get the letters and they'll get the what they need to get, and it'll be brought to forefront. But what Bernardo's got some extra funding, so they used to run a group, the peer support group and what have you, and then they got funding through social care and I sorry through ICB and social care, and it was to fund for older parents of children who are older. And then all of a sudden, all that group that were funded, I think they got a year and they've been given another year. All that's been the people that have been going and doing pins
Mm,
project. I think that's what it were originally. And the original Bernardo's parents were like, no, we're not doing pins. We're not going into school. We're not doing that
mm,
work. We're not lackeys for local authority. Yeah. And all age autism strategy, well, the original Bernardo's group, they pulled out. They all pulled out. The concept, and it were only Bernardo's parents, and they've pulled out before it finished. So this email
what's
had
been
no,
doing it then?
yeah,
Mm,
yeah. And this pins project, I don't know what's gone in. Show me where it's advertised on local offer. Show me where it's put up on social media. Show
mm.
me where you're invited as a local group. The consortium's policy says that anybody can get involved.
There's no signposting, is there? There's no nothing there.
Nothing. And in poor communication, let's get this straight, it's deliberate.
That's censorship. That's not poor communication.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
censorship.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is this. If Ofsted and CQC allow what this local area has been doing since they told the local area they were failing on strategic parent voice. If CQC and Ofsted allow that to happen, then as a group of people, we must ask questions about those coin goals.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, if the DFE want to come in and sort of help the local authority or whatever, I mean, we've still got the person who headed up the safety valve program, that chap, or government employed. He were involved in Barnsley, and a parent told me the other day he's still sat in our strategic board meetings, getting so wonga. But we
Oh, just
failed.
the yeah.
James, we failed at the safety valve. We had a target of 4.7 million. They saved 700 grand. We missed it by 400 grand. £4 million, sorry.
I'm just gonna. What I'm gonna do before we I'm gonna go back. I'm just bear the safety valve. Just give it 2 seconds. Bear that safety valve in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we ready? I want to go back. Headlines again. Let's look at these again. Safety valve. Inconsistency in autism support leads to cross-party investigation. Council ordered to pay 1,500 after failing to provide alternative education for youngsters with autism. Families want police action over SEND failings. Parents unite for calling improved SEND provision. School gets back in over SEND criticism. Surge in full-time holiday fines for parents. Outcomes for Barnsley youngsters insufficient. Above average number of Barnsley youngsters in trouble with the law. School suspensions at the highest rate ever. That safety valve agreement has worked. That's work. That's what a great bit of work. Great piece of work.
But you know what, James? For all that sacrifice, I at least wanted to see that they'd achieved the financial target, and they missed it. They missed this year by 4 million.
Well, the figures are ridiculous per year on that safety valve. 20 million a year. How are you? What? You know what I mean?
They missed the target for last year or the year that went by were 4.7 million, and they missed it by 4 million. And they've just
Unbelievable.
subjected us over the last 3 years, 2.5 years, to secret cuts.
Yeah,
And if you look at it, there's been cuts and no development in provision, and all they've done is triage. This is what I was talking about.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
all
yeah,
fair
yeah,
product. It's a perception of
yeah,
goodness, when in
yeah,
actual fact, what's happening is A&E is having everybody coming through the door and they're sorting everybody out, but everybody's laid in corridors.
yeah, yeah,
That's our
yeah,
sound system. Our
yeah,
sound system is literally that. The front entrance, the shop window, the Facebook pages, the thumbs up Thursday, whatever absolute dogger they're talking about all the time, all these pathetic marketing campaigns that do
yeah,
my head in. We colloquialisms from Barnsley and all this. We're doing this, and then you can see in family hubs they're taking pictures and they're at an angle so it looks like there's three people there. We can all see there's three people. They're at
yeah,
30,
yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And they're not. It's not working. But what's happening? Literally, the metaphor for our sense system is they've got the best. You're going into A&E and you're getting sorted soon. You're seen by somebody who's got no medical background or might know how to put a plaster on, and then you're put in another area, another room, and they move you around rooms, and then eventually you go through the door and you think, I've got some autism support now for my kid, and then you're laid in a bed for 4 hours. That's the metaphor for where we are. All
yeah,
they've done is created the image. It's like Truman Show. That's what it's like.
yeah, yeah.
We're under a glass
While
dome.
while sowing the seeds with school staff, it's the parents, and then obviously everybody else is sowing the seeds. It's the school staff. Let's keep these two fighting at
Absolutely.
each other, and
But,
we'll just hide the real problems. Yeah,
but what I want
yeah,
to see more than all is I want to see, never mind these pins projects, that's a load of hogwash, right? It needs to be local groups, local people, and let's finish on this. Let's finish on what a local parent group is. All
right,
right.
go on.
This does my head in. Okay. I have no problem with the idea that people want that have got lived experience and they've got experience and then they're going to get qualifications and they want to work in SEND. I've got no problem with that. I've got no problem whatsoever. One of the ideals that we had, the philosophies that we had for the forum were it were a triad of sort of suggestions. One were a volunteer network, one were the forum, and the other one was our own IAS. Okay, that's
Yeah,
what the
yeah, yeah,
triangle. That's what I wanted. So I'm not against it, but you've got to keep the purity of what a parent group is. Okay, you've got to. You don't, for me, it's like so. If you look at the consortium, really simply, you've got a parent group at Ad Astra. One of their lead parents were part of our alliance, right? That's an organisation that is more or less solely funded by Barnsley Council. It's a small local funded thing, and they set up an alleged parent group. They don't really deliver any send services, I hasten to add, but that's for another time. So they've attached a parent group to that allegedly. No one knows who they are. No one's seen them. You can't you can't get any evidence. You can't get a constitution. You can't get out. But there's a parent group. Then you move across to Vision Foundation, doing a great job with the work they're doing. No one's denying that. But they're wanting to develop into a charity and they're wanting to be. And just the other day, they posted and they said, come along and speak with us and all other send services, which told you everything you needed to hear.
yeah,
They
yeah,
see
yeah,
themselves as a service,
yeah.
right? Next one, Bernardo's, multi-national company, huge history, some of it very, very bad, I hasten to add.
Yeah, yeah,
No
yeah,
one
yeah, yeah.
looks at that anymore, but shocking. Been working in Barnsley for, stayed independent for years and years, had lottery funding. Obviously, they collaborated and worked with Barnsley Council, but their parents used to go down there and know exactly that that was their safe space. Can you say that now? I'm not going to be the guy that says that on record. But what I would say is that then went and got him, that parent group or the parents who wanted it, the joint consortium, they didn't really know what they were letting themselves into, in my opinion, from what I've been told. Bernardo starts getting funding from ICB for to grow,
Okay, yeah,
right?
yeah,
You know, it's in a pattern here.
yeah, yeah. I am, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Down syndrome group, basically two people who
Mm,
hate me. Okay. And if I'm being completely honest, I know that the vast majority of Down syndrome, parents of children and young people with Down syndrome migrate to Wakefield. So you've got to question the
yeah,
validity
yeah,
of the
yeah,
group,
yeah.
right? And then after that, what we got, I can't think what else we've
So,
got.
Talking Town is still on
Talking
still on
Time
the
still on
consortium.
there and existed for a while. Less said about that, the better from my own personal point of view. There are other avenues for me to deal with that. But
Yeah,
from that perspective, what you've got is you've got organizations and you've got parents who are going along and basically they might as well go to their meetings in Ivy's vests
yeah,
because what they are is they're just lackeys. And these are not bad people. I'm not saying that I'm not slating parents here. What I'm saying is there's a naivety and there's a lack of knowledge of what parent voice should be and what parent strategic parent voice should be. And the key thing here, James, is there's groups that don't like me. There's groups that you don't get on. You don't like, the history, all that kind of stuff. People have the differences. You've got a group. There's Smile. There's my group. There's Barnsley, Same Futures. But if I'm being honest, that looks like they're getting funding now. So that's going to change the dynamic of them. I'm not having a go. I'm just saying it's going to change the dynamic because whenever you're funded by the people that you're trying to moderate for parents, the grayness kicks in.
mm,
And what I don't see me is I didn't see it yesterday. I saw a lot of stalls, badgers. I didn't see professionals getting off the backsides and walking around. I saw people sat there, and you know what I said to my daughter Maddie? I said, "There's parents up and down Borough who are on waiting lists, right? They're on waiting lists. I says, and there's been a full day here of eight
Good stuff.
hours,
Yeah, yeah.
right? That each
I said
store
this
has
the
at
other
least two
day. Yeah.
members of staff on. And you know what? Not one of them members of staff across all them services would have thought to phone up one of them parents and say, I can't give you an official appointment, but if you want to drop in for a conversation, I'll be here all day. They
Well, just
didn't do
imagine the
it.
downtime. Imagine the downtime where they could have rung all them parents up who were waiting for the phone call.
Didn't see any laptops open. Didn't see any phone calls. I didn't see it, James. And what I saw is just in it. And finally, if I'm being to finish on this, is it's all about partnership work, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're told. That's what the inspection framework's about. We're told the white paper's in a month that's gonna be about the schools. It's gonna be about relationship school. I didn't see any school stalls yesterday at all.
Mm.
None. None. I didn't see any school staff turn up. So what does that tell us? No Greenacre, no
No head
Wellspring
teachers.
Trust.
Mm.
Wellspring Trust that were founded in our own borough didn't come there. What is so wrong culturally that no one is able to say, can we have a presence here? Can we have something special? And finally, I promise this is finally because I'm getting knackered, is no one opened it. So there's usually it used to be opened.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It just started. No one closed it. There were no activities,
No speakers.
families and parents. There were very few goodies. People used to have goodies. Yeah. But most importantly, and the key thing to finish on, from my experience, and I have it on good record for other friends that I had there who were professionals. Um, particularly one of my mates who I went to school with, that lad, there were no leadership. You tell me this. You tell me this. Why, when we've got an Ofsted inspection and CQC come in less than 6 or 7 weeks, why is there no elected officials here? Why did the
No.
mayor not come? Why did the CEO of the council not come? Why did the executive leader for children's services not come? Why did the head of education not come? Why? Why? These are children with protected characteristics, and no matter what they think about parents or what they might worry about, what is someone going to be confronted? You've got to go over that. I went there. There's been all sorts said about me, but I still went.
Mm.
But no, they won't get any. No, no, parents are not like that anyway. But nobody went, James. Nobody went above the £80,000 pay grade. I know the most senior person that were there. Sorry, more than 80, but I know the most senior person there. Head of education, nowhere to be seen. Head of social care, nowhere to be seen. Health, yeah. ICB, senior management, nobody there.
No.
That
No.
speaks volumes. And that's why you get emails. That's why you get messages coming from senior staff working in with children saying no one listens to us because no one listens to them because they don't
Mm.
want to, they don't have to. No one makes them senior and executive leaders accountable. Nobody, James. And the more I see it and the more I experience it and the more I witness, the more I feel for people who are working as managers and as workers on the ground in this borough. What
No.
chance have
I'm
they
going to
got?
leave it with this then. I'm going to post a question to everybody who's watching, and everybody's going to pick this up and feel free to comment on it. Just kind of let us know what you think. Is it good enough? Is it good enough?
It's never,
That's the question.
my opinion, mate, it's never been good enough. And there's one key problem, and that is they do not allow us, they don't allow us to have a voice.
Right.
And it shouldn't even be an option. They're not in a position to whether they allow us. And what they do is they demonize us because we are saying it's not for you to allow us. It's for us to take that opportunity.
Yeah.
And they've put us on these social media. They've put us here. and then they've got the
Okay.
audacity
I'm
to
going to be
call us
clear
mum.
when we're saying we, we're talking about we as in parents, as in carers, as in family, as in adults that have gone through the system, who could
Yeah,
shape it, who could
yeah.
kind of create that service and turn it into a better service. That's when we talk about when we say we.
You
Yeah.
know what I don't get? I've got to go, but you know what I don't. You know what people just don't get, James. Right? Is you end up becoming this person, this pantomime villain that people make you into, and they don't really know you. And then when people get to know you, they get to know the real you. And you've experienced it. Me and you've met each other. We didn't know each other, 12 months ago.
Mm. Yeah, 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 yeah,
We both do his own thing, but we've come together to collaborate with this. But the thing that breaks my heart and could bring a tear to my eye is the fact that yesterday, for the first time for a long, long time, since he was a baby, I took my bairn with me. He's my bairn. He's 14. He's 5 foot 11 and a half and size 12 shoe. He's a big chap. He's got a lot of learning disabilities and he's severely autistic. His communication in terms of is low, in terms of
yeah,
talking back
yeah,
to
yeah.
it. His understanding is better than his
I met
communication.
him, yeah, I know, but yeah,
Yeah, of course you have, yeah. And
yeah,
I was so proud to have him beside me yesterday at a disability event because I've never taken him anywhere. And and it upset me because I thought to myself, people don't understand that we're prouder as kids.
yeah, absolutely. I agree,
They,
totally.
they think that because as children are sent that that we need blessing. I'm
Mm.
proud of him. I want to show him
Yeah,
off. And
yeah.
when he got
I'll
up
tell
to
you something.
dance,
Yeah,
when he got up to dance yesterday, I just thought that's my boy. That's my boy, and no, and that's what's missing. And I see it
yeah,
in the eyes of so many parents. They just want to say,
mm,
for once, they want to say, my kid, my son, my daughter, he can or she can do that. He's good at this, he's
mm,
good at that. Instead, the whole system, the whole way we treat it is negative, negative, negative. And we've got to play down everything that they are. We're not allowed to celebrate them. No one wants us to celebrate them. And we're
mm.
demonized within that. Breaks my heart. Breaks
Yeah,
my heart.
I agree, totally, totally. We're on about creating opportunities for children. It's not happening.
No, no, it's not. It's not.
It's not happening.
I'm
Right.
shocked.
On that note, before you start crying, I've got to give you a tissue. Yeah, we'll kind of sign
I'll
off.
put
But yeah,
that.
thank you to everybody.
I'll
But you're
put my
right.
beard on
You're
again
right.
next time, James.
Yeah,
I'll put
yeah,
that beard on again, shall I, next time?
yeah, yeah. You look good with
You look
that.
good in that lipstick, actually.
Yeah, I'll put my pirate filter on.
Have a
But
good one,
no,
mate. I'll
it's
speak to you soon.
have a good one. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you for kind of stopping by and listening to us rant again. But yeah,
Well,
next
it's not
time,
ranting.
next time,
See
next
you,
time.
buddy.
Let's look
Yeah.
at.
Bye,
All
everybody.
right, see you later. All right, bye.
Oh, you still there?
I'm
Are you
here.
going?
I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Bye.
Yeah, bye.